Senior Airman Castle, Appellate Exhibit 15 is a request for trial by military judge alone. Is this your signature on the form at Block 1C?
It is, yes, ma'am.
At the time you signed the request, did you know I would be the military judge in your case?
Yes, ma'am.
Is your request a voluntary one? And by that I mean, are you making the request of your own free will?
Yes, ma'am.
If I approve your request for trial by me alone, you give up your right to be tried by a court composed of members. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you still wish to be tried by me alone?
Yes, ma'am.
Your request is approved, and I am signing the form. It's a one-page document dated 11 September 2023. And I am handing that original to the court reporter. The court is assembled. Accused and defense counsel, please rise. Senior Airman Lance C. Castle, Jr., how do you plead? Before receiving your plea, I advise you that any motions to dismiss or to grant other appropriate relief should be made at this time. Your defense counsel will speak for you.
Your Honor, Senior Airman Castle pleads not guilty to all charges and specifications.
Thank you. You may be seated. Does the government have an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Before that, I would like to discuss pre-admitting exhibits.
Okay.
As well as before prosecution exhibits, we would like to admit the Sandy Board short report for our Senior Airman Lance C. Castle as an appellate exhibit.
As an appellate exhibit?
Yes,
okay.
Your Honor.
Any objections, defense counsel? As an appellate exhibit.
Appellate exhibit, the short Sandy Board short report.
Okay, we're going to wind up offering the long form at some point, but no objection there.
Okay. So appellate exhibit 16, do you have a copy of that, trial counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. So it's a one-page document dated 21 June 2023. Hanging the original to the court reporter.
Before you do that, may I see it, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay.
Next, Your Honor, the prosecution would offer prosecution 1 for identification into evidence as prosecution exhibit 1 is the leave records of Airman Castle. They have multiple dates and it's a one-page document.
Yeah, we have an objection. The foundation hasn't been laid properly.
Okay. If defense objects, we can put these exhibits in during the trial through witnesses.
Yep.
Okay.
We also don't have hard copies of those.
They were previously provided to defense through discovery, Your Honor.
Right. What I would ask trial counsel is on a break, anything you intend to admit, make sure that there are copies. I think we get very reliant on electronic versions, but especially since defense counsel don't work in this building and not all of them are stationed here, it's sometimes difficult to have printing capabilities, and it's much easier if they have copies in front of them. So we can do that on the first break.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And for the other exhibits, do you want to wait then until
Yes, Your Honor.
you're on the stand?
Yes, Your Honor, and the government's ready to proceed with opening.
Just a moment. That's an appellate exhibit. Oh, no. The one page, the prosecution, we did not. You may proceed.
Tell, ask, tell, make. This is a concept used by confinement staff when it comes to interacting with confinees and getting them to comply with required standards. First, you ask the confinee to comply with standards. When they don't follow these requests, second, you tell them. And if they still don't listen, you make them. It's an escalation of force and progressive in nature. You'll learn that this is what confinement staff had to do with Senior Airman Lance C. Castle Jr. multiple times when he was in confinement. However, confinement staff weren't the only ones who used this concept of ask, tell, make. The leadership of Airman Castle and the 27th Special Operations Logistics Readiness Squadron also used it in what's commonly known as progressive discipline. He was asked to comply with simple standards. He was then told and ordered to, and in the end, he was made to the pretrial confinement. You'll learn that when asking Airman Castle to perform his duties was ineffective, he was told and ordered to do so. You'll learn that after many letters of counselings and letter of reprimands, that his behavior didn't change, and so he was given non-judicial punishment and demoted from staff sergeant to senior airman. However, all the while Airman Castle was given administrative actions and punishment, he still was not complying with standards. Furthermore, he was disrespectful to both his supervisor and his commander, Sergeant Carey and Colonel Vasquez. You'll first hear from Sergeant Carey, who will tell you that he had a good relationship with Airman Castle starting out. He'll tell you that his expectations of Airman Castle was to check his email 3 times a day and to let him know of appointments the day before and at least 10 minutes before his start of day at 7:30. Pay attention to Sergeant Carey when he testifies and tells you that it started going downhill around Christmas when Airman Castle wasn't completing his task, and so Sergeant Carey asked him to come in on the following Monday that he originally had off. And when Airman Castle didn't get what he wanted, he was disrespectful and told Sergeant Carey things such as, "I'm sorry it's gotten to this point, but you are no longer my leader or in charge of me," as well as disgraceful leadership all the way up to the SecDef. You'll learn from LRS leadership that Colonel Vasquez gave a direct order to Airman Castle to show up to work, but this had no effect as well. And the evidence will show that in response, Airman Castle called Colonel Vasquez a domestic threat. Airman Castle said he swore to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that he would bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And he said that this was him bearing true faith and allegiance to the same against Colonel Vasquez's domestic abuse of power, that he's fighting against his tyranny and harsh authoritarianism. Airman Castle said he will prove their injustice and in the end prevail from this illegal, highly corrupt, hypocritical, dictatorship, tyranny-style leadership. And at this point, non-judicial punishment was ineffective, and a few more administrative actions were given. And this direct order given by the commander was ineffective, that they asked Airman Castle to show up. They told Airman Castle to show up, and now they were given no choice but to make him show up through pretrial confinement. Now, on April 10th, 2023, he was apprehended and brought to confinement. And when he was brought to confinement to be in-processed, he was aggressive and refused to complete the in-processing task that he was asked. Senior Airman Kelly, now Mr. Kelly, started raising his voice to escalate and tell Airman Castle what to do. When he didn't comply, confinement staff had to use a restraint chair to make Airman Castle comply. It was during this time that Airman Castle was strapping on the restraints of Airman Castle's onto Airman Castle's leg that Airman Castle kicked at Senior Airman Kelly. And at that point, in order not to get hit, Airman Kelly quickly moved his knee to the side and causing his knee to be dislocated in order to avoid being hit by Airman Castle. The next morning, Airman Castle continued to refuse to listen to when he was asked and told to comply with simple requirements. And because of this, confinement staff did a cell extraction to ensure the safety of Airman Castle. Sergeant Petit was in charge of securing Airman Castle's head and was the first person to enter that cell. And when Sergeant Petit started entering that cell, Airman Castle started throwing punches at the confinement staff. But eventually, they were able to take him down to the ground. And that's when Sergeant Petit was securing the head, looked back to ensure that they were putting restraints on Airman Castle, and when he looked back, that's when Airman Castle hit Sergeant Petit in the nose, causing him to have a deviated septum. And once again, you'll learn that all this happened because Airman Castle couldn't comply when asked or when he was told he had to be made to follow instructions. Ask, tell, make. And at the end of this trial, the evidence will support that the government has proved beyond a reasonable doubt all charges and specifications, and my co-counsel, Captain Ozoa, will ask that you find Airman Castle guilty of all charges and specifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
At every turn, Senior Airman Castle asked for help. He was struggling mentally and physically, and at every turn, the unit told him to trust the process. Trust that the Air Force had his best interest. Trust that the med group, to include mental health, had his best interest. Trust that his commander had his best interest. Trust that his supervision had his best interest. And trust that security forces had his best interest. But what the evidence will show is that all of these agencies failed him. The government failed him. And the Air Force failed him. Senior Airman Castle came up on the commander's radar during COVID because he refused to vaccinate. Senior Airman Castle was moved around and treated like an anti-vaxxer, vilified for his religious belief against the COVID vaccine, until the order from SECAF came out rescinding it. The COVID vaccination process brought significant stress on Senior Airman Castle's life, and he started to spiral. Unable to comprehend the COVID process the military was endorsing at the time, Senior Airman Castle applied for the religious exemption, and like almost everyone in the Air Force, he was denied. And the only time Senior Airman Castle interacted with his command was when the commander was telling him he was recommending denial of his package at every time that it was denied. When he had his squadron recommendation, he denied, and he told Senior Airman Castle that. When the MAGCOM rejected it, he had a meeting and told Senior Airman Castle that. And this is what set up the atmosphere for Senior Airman Castle in the unit. His supervision treated him as an anti-vaxxer right-wing nut. He got a new supervisor, Master Sergeant Carey, who volunteered to take on Castle as his project. And at first they got along, but then they didn't. Their personalities clashed. Master Sergeant Carey was a shut-up-in-color senior NCO, and Senior Airman Castle asked all the questions. With what colors? Inside or outside the lines? And is this due today? Master Sergeant Carey was very dismissive of all the valid questions Senior Airman Castle had. Senior Airman Castle frustrated Master Sergeant Carey. And the more Senior Airman Castle frustrated Master Sergeant Carey, the more Master Sergeant Carey tightened his reins on Senior Airman Castle. By December 2022, Senior Airman Castle felt his mental health deteriorating and sought out resources. He went to mental health, he met with doctors, and by 10 January 2023, his mental health had deteriorated so much that he expressed in a medical note to his provider that he wanted to hurt his supervisor, and they didn't deem him a risk to the unit or to anybody else. His mental health continued to deteriorate. The more Senior Airman Castle was under the microscope and the more stressful his work situation became, the more erratic his behavior became. The unit issued multiple pieces of paperwork on him and hammered him with adverse actions. Only during his personal appearance of his NJP was when his commander saw the need to do a command-directed evaluation. On 6 February 2023, the commander called mental health and asked if he could do a CDE on Senior Airman Castle. But the medical group turned the commander away. The commander noticed how problematic Castle's behavior became, because by that time in Senior Airman Castle's PIF, there were several MFRs documenting his aggressive, irritable, and illogical behavior. You'll have that medical record, and it will show that the head of the mental health clinic did not see the need to do a command-directed evaluation. Likewise, you'll have medical records showing that Senior Airman Castle was telling the medical group and mental health about how he was feeling. They diagnosed him with anxiety and depression, and his medical records show that he was expressing that he was feeling unsafe at work. And the medical group and mental health ignored all of that. By 29 March 2023, Senior Airman Castle sought out other supervisors in his leadership chain and asked for a new supervisor and asked to be removed from Master Sergeant Carey. His requests were denied. Denied by Master Sergeant Carey, denied by Captain Lawrence, and denied by the commander. Senior Airman Castle exhausted all of his resources and stopped coming to work. But he didn't stop communicating with his supervisors. You will receive the text message that show that all the way up until his apprehension on 10 April 2023, he was communicating with the SHIRT about his various appointments and whereabouts. At every turn, the unit met Castle with paperwork and treated him as if he was lying and lazy. He was not. He was experiencing severe mental health issues that were undiagnosed. Castle didn't trust the process because he couldn't. He had severe paranoia, illogical thinking, and the inability to control his emotions that caused him to be very distrustful. He sought second opinions. He sought the right mental health care that didn't treat him as if he was a nuisance. And because he didn't look like the typical suicidal airman who needed a CDE, the unit, and even the mental health clinic at Cannon Air Force Base didn't submit him to a CDE. Colonel Broderick will tell you that his psychiatric condition is so severe and was so debilitating that she will say, but for this condition, he would not have had occupational or legal issues. She says that his impairments in all of these domains are directly tied to the psychiatric condition. So while she did say that he has the cognitive ability to appreciate right from wrong, functionally speaking, he could not. His behaviors were so impulsive and his diagnosis was so severe that it directly caused all of the underlying misconduct. So instead of the commander re-engaging with mental health after 6 February 2023, when his behavior got progressively worse, and asking mental health whether Senior Airman Castle met the criteria for the CDE again, they put him in pretrial confinement. Weeks leading up to his pretrial confinement, Senior Airman Castle asks for meetings with the SHIRT, Captain Lawrence, Master Sergeant Carey, and the commander. Senior Airman Castle stated how unsafe he felt under Master Sergeant Carey's supervision, and he told them, "I feel like my brain is eating itself. My blood pressure is so high, I feel like whenever I interact with Master Sergeant Carey, I feel like I'm going to die." Just 12 days before Senior Airman Castle was placed into pretrial confinement, supervisors like Captain Lawrence and Master Sergeant Carey made fun of him and wanted to see him fail. In the morning of 10 April 2023, the SHIRT knew where Senior Airman Castle was, and they lured Senior Airman Castle to a TTM meeting where the SHIRT told Senior Airman Castle that the commander would be there. Senior Airman Castle's text with the SHIRT will confirm that the SHIRT tells Senior Airman Castle that the TTM will include the commander. Yet in the background, the unit and security forces is waiting for him to come through the gate where they arrest him. They completely blindside Senior Airman Castle. So this becomes a huge stressful situation where Senior Airman Castle is so triggered by his commander, the stress of in-processing into confinement, that he cannot control his behavior. You'll hear from Colonel Broderick, the 706 doctor who evaluated him, that this was a stressful event that triggered his psychiatric condition. The assault of Staff Sergeant Petit happened as a result of security forces personnel who are not trained in cell extractions performing a cell extraction and using excessive force. And Senior Airman Castle acted in self-defense. The assault of Senior Airman Kelly, there are conflicting statements whether Senior Airman Kelly was actually hit by Senior Airman Castle. And the evidence will show that Senior Airman Kelly was not hit by Senior Airman Castle. And when the stress of in-processing calmed down, so did Senior Airman Castle. And he remained compliant until 14 June 2023, when he was released by order of Judge Elijah Brown. And since then, there's been no issues. Your Honor, this is the first time Senior Airman Castle is getting a full and fair hearing on the merits of this case. He's choosing to place his trust in you. And placing his trust in this justice process. You have the ability to make it right. And you have the ability to hold the government accountable. And that's why we ask you to find him not guilty on all specifications and charges. Thank you.
Trial counsel, I know before we came on the record this morning, you were working to make sure that all of your witnesses were available.
Yes, Your Honor, we could take a 5-minute recess to just confirm that.
The court is in recess for 5 minutes.
All rise.